So I call the meeting to order. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, good morning on day 2 of our conference on marine litter and plastic pollution. My name is Peter Woodward. I have the privilege of being the independent moderator on behalf of the co-conveners of the conference. This morning I'm appearing in room S1 downstairs at the WTO, and we have many other delegates who are up in the upstairs room, and also many further participants and delegates online. You are all most welcome to this conference. We had a very full day, first day yesterday, and we are going to continue that. There is a very high demand for interventions, which is excellent news, but as ever, we are trying to manage those interventions within the limited time we have available. Just to give you a feeling of the geography of the day, in a moment we're going to continue with agenda item 3, sub item B, reflections on the ministerial statement. And then we're going to go to item 4, outlining steps in the lead up to the resumed 5th session of the UNEA 5.2. We will break for an hour at 12 o'clock and reconvene to address item 5. This is at 1 o'clock, the high-level dialogue, followed by item 6, update on relevant processes, item 7, co-convener summary, and agenda item 8, any other matters. And the plan is for the conference to close at 1600 CET. So that's the pathway forwards. What I would now like to do is to continue with reflections on the draft ministerial statement. We received many comments and interventions yesterday. We have a number of people who have indicated they would further like to comment. Just to remind, if you would like to intervene, if you are in one of the 2 live rooms, please put your country or your name card vertically, and we will add you to a list for interventions. And if you are online, please, if you will indicate as well, and we will then see how many we can get through. Could I further please encourage you to stick within the 2-minute time limit so that we can maximize the interventions, and at 2 minutes I will ask you please to stop and ask on behalf of the conference that you follow that guideline. So we have, as I say, a very full day, and I would now like to resume interventions, comments on the ministerial statement, which will be fed into the into the revisions of the statement. And please, I would like to start with Norway. And I really hope Maren Holsen is with us this morning. Maren.
Thank you, Peter. Can you hear me now?
It's good.
That's good. Excellencies, dear colleagues, people are expecting us to take bold action in the face of a mounting plastic pollution crisis. The demand for stronger measures to combat plastic pollution is heard around the world. At UNEA 5.2 next year, Norway will work to adopt a mandate for starting negotiation on a global agreement to guide our actions to prevent plastic pollution. Let us make this first ever Ministerial Conference a milestone on the way to UNEA 5.2 by sending a strong statement of support to this ambition. For several years, the international community has discussed how to best address the gaps in the international governance in order to prevent marine litter and plastic pollution. At the same time, we have come to understand that the scale and the impact of marine plastic pollution is even greater than initially feared. In the preparatory meetings leading up to this conference, we have seen significant conversions on many issues. The need for targeted measures across the whole life cycle of plastic products, the need for a systematic approach to data monitoring and knowledge generation to inform our policy making, and the need to mobilize and coordinate financial resources. What has become apparent is the need to change how we deal with plastic from beginning to end in order to prevent plastic pollution. We need a system-wide change. A global agreement to guide our action toward a common goal will put us on a path towards a more sustainable plastic economy. I hope we will make the most of this opportunity, and I urge you all to support the draft ministerial statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and it is so good to see your face and to hear the important intervention from Norway. I'm just going to mention the next three interventions I expect so that you can be prepared. I'm expecting to hear from Sri Lanka, then Egypt, and then Bangladesh. If you put yourself on the waiting list to speak yesterday, could you reconfirm this morning so that we know that you are here and that you have planned to speak? So if you are expecting to speak, please put your card up or indicate online. So I would now like to go to Sri Lanka, please.
Excellencies and distinguished participants, Sri Lanka generally agrees with the content, however, wishes to highlight some key issues related to maritime pollution. Marine Environment Protection Authority, as the mandated agency in Sri Lanka, has taken many initiatives to control, prevent and minimize shore-based and ship-based marine pollution. With the heavily trafficked east-west shipping route closer to our shore, we are quite conscious of the economic potential as well as environmental challenges. At the moment, our pristine marine environment is severely stressed with the largest marine plastic pollution to have happened ever, due to MV Express Pearl incident that took place on the 20th May this year. It is still live with hotspots releasing pollutant from the ship wreckage and underwater containers. The ship has now sunk with remaining cargo, but recovery and surveying, etc. of the wreckage and containers have become a challenge in the monsoon seasons with rough sea conditions. Combination of chemicals, oil and plastic in one incident gives this a unique position among the all-time maritime disasters. Almost 12,000 metric tons of plastic of different types, along with tons of plastic nodules. This incident is ocean littering of a critical nature, and some of the ramifications would not be even evident for years. This incident has resulted in deaths of many hundreds of charismatic marine species such as turtles, whales, and dolphins, and we are still counting, and definitely threatening certain species for sure, according to marine biologists. It is important that we take the necessary lessons from this and set in changes to safeguard the future. Our oceans deserve better. A recent research has revealed that plastic nodules were even found in human placenta. Nodule is no simple ocean litter, and now it's time. And now it's time to recognize and categorize plastic nodules as a material of concern in the MARPOL Convention. In this juncture, I would like to propose to the international community, especially to the International Maritime Organization and to the shipping industry, to specifically identify plastic nodules as a high-level pollutant and to have a separate mechanism for its recovery, similar to oil spills, with tier levels, funds for remedial measures, and increased insurance coverage. Also, special packaging, transporting, loading, unloading protocols to be introduced with clear responsibilities to ensure safe and secure transportation and handling. Above all, to waive off the burden of proof from the victimized country, as the impacts most often would take years, if not decades, to be visible. Given this scenario, with ever-increasing maritime trade and cruise tourism, it is a global responsibility to have an international mechanism to operate long-term recovery with funding, technology, and experts, and to support a strengthening of responsive capacities of coastal states closer to major sea lanes, like Sri Lanka, to face future disasters of similar nature, as we have a great collective responsibility of protecting our oceans for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your intervention. I now turn to Egypt. Just a reminder, please, to the 2-minute limit, and also not to speak too fast, as our translators are translating into 6 languages. So Egypt, and that will be followed by Bangladesh, and then Sierra Leone. Egypt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me first thank the governments of Ecuador, Germany, Ghana, and Vietnam for supporting this initiative, and of course UNEP as well, and for Switzerland for hosting and their hospitality actually now. Apart from the emphasis which were made yesterday on the need to emphasize the fact that technical cooperation, and I underline technical cooperation rather than simply technical or technology transfer. We're talking also about capacity building. We're talking about sharing of good practices and financial mechanisms and support. And I think this needs to be reflected clearly in the statement as it has, but I think more emphasis needs to be done there. 3 quick points which I'd like to make. One is it's essential to ensure the policy coherence at the international level as well as at the national level. And when I refer to the international level, I'm referring, of course, to the support provided through ODA, through bilateral assistance, UN agencies, and the Bretton Woods institutions. I think there needs to be more coherence there. At the national level, emphasis needs to be laid as well on the policy coherence at the national level, meaning policies needs to be packaged in such a way, and I think that was referred to yesterday, regulations, market incentives, training, education, awareness, trade policies, and the like, all needs to be, rhyming together rather than running in contradiction to one another. And I think this needs to be, shared experience needs to be done at that level. The last and final point I'd like to make is, I think it's important to demonstrate the linkage between adopting such an agreement, which is fruitful and I think it's needed, the fact that it contributes to supporting or increasing the system of national accounts or enhancing the system of national accounts. It creates new jobs, creates new market opportunities, and of course it cuts down on costs in terms of cutting down on the cost of health and health insurance and hospitals and medicine and that sort of thing, and job creation. So I think here we need to make the point that yes, making this transition does contribute to economic development, and we're talking about sustainable economic development, job creation, and transferring us or moving us into the path of sustainable development. I thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your intervention. I'll come now to Bangladesh, and we'll be followed by Sierra Leone and Kenya. Bangladesh, please.
Thank you, Chair. Am I audible, Chair?
You are.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Bangladesh highly appreciates the draft ministerial statement prepared by the organizer of Ministerial Conference on Marine Litter and Plastic Pollution. Generally speaking, the draft has covered almost all the technical and technological issues pertaining to combating marine litter and plastic pollution. However, the draft needs a specific wording on country-specific issues and resource mobilization from developed to developing and least developed countries towards preventing the marine litter. Our specific comment would lie on with reference to the paragraph 2 in the 7th line after eliminate, the wording could follow as, eliminate single-use plastic and unnecessary plastics, blah, blah. And then after the text in paragraph 5 of the, sentence, we would like to insert, a common but differentiated responsibilities to contain plastic with much more emphasis on capacity building for the developing and the least developed countries with the technical, technological, and financial assistance from the developed countries. Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much.
Your message is received. Thank you very much indeed. I turn now to Sierra Leone, and that will be followed by Kenya and then the Seychelles. Sierra Leone, come in. I believe Sierra Leone are in room W. Okay, I think we don't have Sierra Leone with us, so I now move to Kenya, please. And that will be followed by the Seychelles and the United Kingdom.
Moderator. First and foremost, we would like to thank the conveyors of the workshop, Ecuador, Germany, Ghana, and Vietnam. We want to say that the case has been made, and we agree that it is urgent that plastic pollution is dealt with. We also support the ministerial statement, and that we need a globally binding agreement, and therefore we support that UNEA 5.2 urgently forms an intergovernmental committee to start work on negotiating the details of the brilliant ideas that have been presented by various members, and that it should have time frame, and we do not try to negotiate details in the ministerial statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your intervention. I now move to the Seychelles, and we will be followed by the United Kingdom and Dominican Republic. Seychelles.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Firstly, on behalf of the government of Seychelles, I would like to express our gratitude to the governments of Ecuador, Germany, Ghana, and Vietnam for convening this ministerial conference. Seychelles, being a small island state, we know and we recognize the work that has been made in order to produce the statement. You know that Seychelles, small in size, we lack resources and we are always at a disadvantage because we are vulnerable. We wish that today plastic did not exist, and we wish that we can beat plastic pollution. So therefore, there is a need to have solutions that are very easy to implement. We agree that there is a need to have a unified position on how to tackle the issue of marine litter and plastic pollution. A legally binding agreement must represent the commitment of everyone towards finding the best solution. However, we would request that small island states do participate in consultation so as to come up with best solutions that we see ourselves inclusive. Small countries like Seychelles or least developed countries must benefit from such agreement and must see themselves represented in those agreements. Through my intervention, I also speak for others, and we await tangible actions. Therefore, it is high time that solutions are made. Seychelles depend highly on tourism, and therefore we call on other countries, developed countries, to accept responsibilities and be part of the global agreement by providing support in the form of financial as well as capacity building and, of course, technology transfer. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much indeed for your intervention. I now turn to the United Kingdom, followed by the Dominican Republic and Libya. And just a reminder to those online, if you can turn your video on, it does help the interpreters and also helps all of us to see a face behind or in front of the voice. So now I turn to the United Kingdom.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to thank the co-conveners for the Ministerial Conference, Ecuador, Germany, Ghana, and Vietnam for organizing this really critical meeting. I would also like to convey my personal wishes to Sri Lanka on the Express Pearl maritime disaster, which again shines a light on the fragile nature of our marine environment and the issue of pollution from microplastics, such as plastic pellets. As we move towards UNEA 5.2, it will be important to maintain the momentum created by the super year for nature and climate, and to really capitalize on the progress made through COP26, CBD COP15, and other landmark events such as this meeting. The UK has high ambitions to tackle the issues affecting the oceans, such as plastic pollution, which is why our Prime Minister launched the 500 million Blue Planet Fund at the G7 Leaders Summit earlier this year. We think this ministerial statement has the potential to act as a common starting point that will help us achieve our objective to start negotiations on a new global agreement. We are really grateful for the quick work to address the comments on the ministerial statement by the co-conveners, and we think this has made some really significant improvements to the text, and we look forward to receiving the final version today. Thank you.
United Kingdom, thank you very much indeed. And now I turn to the Dominican Republic, and that will be followed by Libya and Uganda. So, Dominican Republic, the floor is yours, and if you can switch your video on, great. Over to you.
Muchas gracias. República Dominicana.
Accompanying us in these morning and afternoon meetings. We're grateful to to Vietnam, Ghana, and to other countries, and to Switzerland as the host. We have sent our observations in written form. However, we'd like to stress the following points. Before we achieve a signature of a pact to tackle this major world problem, we must focus on actions and make progress on having information that can be used as a basis for the effective implementation mechanism of this instrument. So taking into account that as a small island state, this is a problem that affects us directly, environmentally, economically, and socially, and we need concrete actions that will guarantee a paradigm shift from the very beginning to the final point, and also identify those who are the most affected and those who are contaminating the most. We have to base our discussions on the polluter pays principle and the common but differentiated responsibilities principle. For this, we need data, we need information, we need mechanisms that guarantee the success of actions that are implemented. I thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for your intervention. I now turn to Libya, and that will be followed by Uganda and Singapore. Libya.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Very quickly, I would like to say that the transiting ships in seas are a source of pollution. As you know, Libya has the second longest coast on the Mediterranean, and this requires a lot of action. Some of the ships that go through our waters dispose of their trash in the sea, and we bear the brunt of this. I would like to focus on plastic waste from the side of its starting with the production of plastic. We need to look at this. It needs to be replaced by more environmentally friendly products. We want to prevent single-use plastic, and in Libya we are making an effort in this field, and we believe that an international agreement is going to be helpful in combating the use of single-use plastic. Thank you.
Libya, I thank you very much indeed for your intervention. Well noted. I now come to Singapore, and that will be followed by Eritrea and then the United States of America. Singapore.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. In view of the 2 minute per intervention guideline, I will go straight to share Singapore's views on the draft statement, which we had also submitted in writing. At the outset, allow us to join others in highlighting the importance of the marine litter and plastic pollution issue. We agree that countries must work together as one international community to tackle this challenge. There is clearly a need for better and more effective plastic waste management, keeping in mind that marine litter and plastic pollution is primarily caused by environmentally unsound management of plastic waste from land-based sources. As we reflect on the potential global agreement on marine litter and plastic pollution, it is equally important to consider ambition alongside pragmatism and flexibility. To ensure that a potential global agreement leads to a concrete action on the ground, it should be guiding and not punitive, respect national circumstances, and be fit for purpose. In addition, Singapore is of the view that it is critical we identify the fundamental drivers of marine litter and plastic pollution. This will allow us to develop actions and solutions that are fit for purpose. Specifically on the statement, my delegation finds that it broadly frames marine litter and plastic pollution as a problem caused by plastic production rather than excessive consumption or environmentally unsound management of waste. This is not completely accurate. As such, we call for a recalibration of paragraph 4 of the statement to remove the sweeping call for reductions in plastic production, which may not be a pragmatic way forward. We must not forget that plastics continue to play a functional role in modern society. The statement also calls for the global agreement to be based on a precautionary approach. This approach is institutionalized in the Rio Principles. However, we should also embrace the science-based approach. To ensure a ministerial statement that reflects a diversity of views, we look forward to the incorporation of our views. Singapore stands ready to work with and fully cooperate with all countries, industries, and NGOs on this important issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Singer, for your message. Thank you, Singer, for your messages. Well received. I turn to Eritrea. Problem here. Microphone is just not working. Can I just check if anyone has a microphone on? Oh. Okay, I think we are back in business. So apologies for that small technical hitch. I now turn to Eritrea, and we will be followed by United States of America and the Russian Federation. Eritrea. Eritrea, are you with us?
Yes, but
okay, I think we will come back to you if we can. Yeah.
Good morning.
You're with us.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
I think there is an issue of a speaker in your room, so if you're able to switch off your speaker.
Okay.
I think if we can come back to you, we will keep you very much on the list, but see if we can sort out the technicals behind the scene. So could I now turn to the United States of America, please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. And I would like to begin by thanking the co-hosts and UNEP who have helped bring us together by organizing this meeting, as well as the previous meetings in May and June. And Mr. Moderator, I would just comment that when you started this session, you made a comment that I agree with, which is that I think these efforts have really made a big difference in helping to keep ocean plastic pollution high on the international political agenda, which I think is quite important as we're working virtually or in hybrid environments. Now, on the U.S. side, As we noted at both the May and June sessions, our own internal policy development process is ongoing. So we do not have a full position yet on this issue on how we wish to proceed, including on a number of the issues that are raised in the ministerial statement itself. So we will not be in a position at this time to sign the statement. Nevertheless, I did want to say that from our perspective, this process has been extremely helpful in allowing for us to have, I think, a very robust exchange of views. Certainly for us, that helps inform our internal policy process and deliberations. And I would just say in closing that we look very much forward to working with others here towards a positive and decisive outcome at UNEA 5.2 that will allow us to make progress moving forward. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much indeed from the United States of America. I now turn to the Russian Federation, followed by State of Palestine, and then Rwanda. Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will make a statement in Russian. Уважаемый
Moderator, members of the Ministerial Conference, we are grateful to the co-conveners, Germany, Ecuador, Ghana, and Vietnam for organizing the Ministerial Conference on the issue of plastic pollution and marine litter. We are very grateful to Switzerland too for hosting the conference. We think the discussions that have taken place will contribute to the process of consolidating broad support for tackling plastic pollution and marine litter. The pollution of our global oceans plastic pollution and microplastic pollution are one of the greatest modern environmental challenges. In this respect, we welcome the efforts of UNEP for galvanizing the international community in the matter. We also welcome the work of the UNEP expert group on the matter. Ruslan Batovsky, a Russian expert, was part of that group. As such, Russia supports enhancing the role of UNEP as a key structure within the UN system for developing an international environmental agenda focusing on strengthening the scientific basis. We think that in line with its mandate, UNEP should act as a leader in developing and implementing global measures to prevent the pollution of our world's oceans, namely plastic pollution. Russia is prepared to engage in constructive cooperation under the auspices of UNEP in this field. We think that the negotiating process should be open and transparent, and first and foremost, it should take place in Nairobi. Thank you for your attention.
Russian Federation, thank you very much for your intervention. We will now turn to the State of Palestine, followed by Rwanda and Mexico. And just to mention that there are a lot of other organizations wanting to intervene. We'll try and include as many as possible, but there is also the
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for giving me the floor.
And our priority is
to thank the co-conveners of this meeting
understand the process.
And to thank the Swiss government for hosting it.
Palestine, please.
Regarding the ministerial statement, I have the following notes.
First, the title of the statement says Ministerial Conference on Marine Litter and Plastic Pollution, while the text inside the statement says many times plastic pollution, sometimes plastic pollution and marine litter, and in some cases plastic pollution including marine litter. So the ministerial statement should keep the consistency of the terminology and address the importance of both marine litter and plastic pollution. Second, I iterate what is mentioned by my colleagues yesterday and today for regarding the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and the need for sustainable capacity building, financial resources, and technology transfer for the developing countries and least developing countries. Third, in the first paragraph of the statement, it is worth to add the word environmentally in the second line from the bottom to read as and environmentally unsound management of plastic waste. Finally, I draw your attention for the specific situation as we still state under occupation. We have limited access to our resources and our seas. Additionally, there are several Israeli wars in Gaza cause deterioration for our marine fragile environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for your intervention. I believe we're going to go to Mexico, followed by the Democratic Republic of Congo and Cambodia. Mexico.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. My intervention is going to be in Spanish. El gobierno de México se suma al agradecimiento.
The government of Mexico would like to associate itself to the thanks expressed by Ecuador, Germany, Vietnam, and Ghana for organizing this ministerial conference, as well as the government of Switzerland as host of this meeting. For our country, the complexity of marine pollution as a result of plastics requires a structural change and a comprehensive approach that considers all of the aspects and actors that are relevant. The objective must be to move towards systems of circular economy that provide the necessary incentives to develop and reach inclusive sustainable development long-term as well. We consider that aside from the visible effects, efforts must be made to resolve the problem from the origin of the problem by having global waste management, which requires close work with the innovation sector in terms of recycling plastics and conditions in the marketplace for using recycled materials. The government of Mexico is fully committed to facing this world emergency, promoting national measures that are in line with sustainable development. We seek to work in the changing of the managers for waste management to align ourselves with a circular economy to prevent the flow of plastics to the oceans. We make an appeal, therefore, to combat marine litter through scientific knowledge and the identification, pinpointing of routes that plastics follow towards ecosystems, and the strengthening of capacities, as well as coordinating international actions to remove the existing plastics in the oceans. The oceans and the biodiversity have made it possible to have a balance in our planet, and without this balance, we really face a very dim future. Thank you very much.
I now come to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and that will be followed by Cambodia and then China. Democratic Republic of Congo, please.
Merci. Je remercie.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of the organizers for organizing this conference. As you are already aware, I assume the DRC has a very dense hydrography. We support all initiatives and draft resolutions from UNEA for a binding agreement on plastic pollution. The efforts of all countries must be common and based on a balance between countries in the development of a circular economy. Our country is prepared to participate in all negotiations and processes in the future on this project in order to ensure that UNEA 5.2 will be a success. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your intervention. We now go to Cambodia, followed by China, and then I hope we can bring Eritrea back in. Cambodia. Cambodia, are you with us? It seems not for now, so can I turn to China, followed by Eritrea?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, it is good.
Thank you, sir, moderator. Firstly, I would like to extend my gratitude to the co-conveners, Ecuador, Germany, Ghana, Vietnam for organizing the meeting. Also, I would like to thank UNEP for supporting this meeting. With many countries in the world, China has reached consensus on the urgency of solving the issues of marine plastic pollution. China is fully aware of the global and the transboundary nature of marine plastic pollution. China supports and is committed to the work with the international committee to take effective action to combat marine plastic litters. Yesterday, we learned from the introduction by relevant international organizations and conventions about recent progress on issues of marine litter and plastic pollution. China welcomed the great progress and efforts. From another perspective, this indicates that plastic issues are involving the many sectors, such as agriculture, food industry, medical treatment, and health, and so on. And also this indicates that plastic issues are very complex. China thought there is no single way to deal with these complex issues. We should take comprehensive approaches to tackle marine plastic pollution that we come from. With regard to the contents of the statement, we note that the statement have some difference compared with the general political statement that we have seen previously. Generally speaking, the political statement include the importance, commitments, and actions that we take, and so on. Also present the aspirations of global committee to work jointly, and the strategic directions and action initiatives. We thought also there are some few of countries that share similar view with us. We thought the very detailed contents related to the international instrument agreement should be discussed and negotiated at the UNEA. China also will continue to actively participate in the international process and work with the international committee to combat plastic pollution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, China. Your messages are received well by this conference and the co-conveners. Thank you. I'm going to try and return to Eritrea now. Eritrea, are you online? We see your face but not your voice. Are you on mute? No, we still have a problem, so we will try and resolve that, and I'm afraid come back to you if we're able to. So I'm now just going to try Cambodia once again. Okay, we have no joy there. If there are further member states that would like to contribute a comment to the ministerial statement, then please, there's still the opportunity. However, we now have a number of non-governmental organizations who are involved with this conference, and I'd like to provide time and an opportunity for short interventions from those who have indicated. So first of all, I'd like to go to the Center for Oceanic Awareness, Research and Education. I'll follow that with the Worldwide Fund for Nature and the Science Technology Major Group. So the Center for Oceanic Awareness, Research and Education, please.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. As you mentioned yesterday, Chair, we could speak for many hours on this hot topic, as you put it. Indeed, the fact that we have been discussing marine litter and plastic pollution since the very first United Nations Environment Assembly more than 7 years ago makes it abundantly clear that voluntary measures are not sufficient. During the preparatory meetings that preceded this conference in May and June, a number of participants noted that the new global treaty should indeed be a legally binding instrument. Unfortunately, the draft ministerial statement fails to reflect this important aspect of an international convention. As we heard from Dr. Orellana, the UN Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights, the need for a new global agreement must take into account the impact of the full life cycle of plastics under a human rights-based approach. Furthermore, we would like to echo and emphasize his mention that caution must be taken when considering and addressing possible alternatives and solutions. Not only must we embrace the precautionary principle, but we must also be wary of false solutions, which would only serve to undermine our efforts and continue to harm vulnerable populations, as highlighted in the recent UN Environment Report on the environmental justice impacts of marine litter and plastic pollution. We would all do well to remember that sometimes the alternative to a thing is not necessarily another thing, but rather the solution may lie in the realization that it was not truly necessary in the first place. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. I now ask WWF to intervene, followed by the Science Technology Major Group.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, it is good.
WWF welcomes the initiative of the co-conveners to prepare a draft ministerial statement for this conference. And we commend the organizers for allowing both states and other stakeholders to provide inputs to earlier drafts. In our view, a key purpose of this ministerial statement should be to motivate decision-making at UNEA 5.2 and to provide a platform for member states to express at the highest political level their commitment to the start of formal negotiations on a legally binding global agreement on plastic pollution. The draft statement as it stands highlights the urgency of the plastic pollution crisis and outlines key considerations for a new global agreement, including prioritization of preventive measures, life cycle approach, and circular economy as strategic directions for addressing the crisis. This is a good starting point for further discussions on the content of the new global agreement. WWF urges all states participating in this conference, both here in Geneva and online, to endorse the ministerial statement, and to call for a decision to be made at UNEA 5.2 to start formal negotiations on a new legally binding agreement with ambitious goals matching the scale and gravity of the plastic crisis. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you to the WWF, and now to the Science Technology Major Group, and that will be followed by Member States Georgia and Madagascar. So, Science Technology Major Group.
Dear Excellencies, colleagues, the Science and Technology Major Group supports the process to achieve a legally binding global plastics treaty that covers its full life cycle and welcomes the statement. Historically, scientific research on the impact of plastics focused heavily on the marine environment. However, scientific evidence concludes that plastic pollution in the terrestrial, atmospheric, polar and freshwater realms is equally as destructive as in the marine environment, and the knowledge base is still emerging and expanding. Under a new global agreement, a dedicated scientific body/clearinghouse is needed with clear definitions of roles, administration, coordination, conflict of interest policy, and stable, reliable funding. The objectives of such a body would include monitoring economic indicators such as production and consumption patterns. Civil society engagement is essential in ensuring that policymakers have access to all available and relevant information. This should include participation from those on the front line of plastic pollution impacts, including marginalized and indigenous communities. Also, we wish to stress the importance of a wide range of relevant, independent, and reliable data to support evidence-based decision-making and advocacy. Crucial elements will include citizen science and local knowledge, as well as indigenous knowledge, practices, and innovations. Overall, there is an urgency to bridge the knowledge-action gap. We already know enough to take decisive and legally binding action. Many thanks for taking this into consideration for the statement.
Thank you very much for your intervention. And thank you also to everyone for confining themselves to the 2-minute rule. It really is helping us to get a lot of voices into this conference and informing the ministerial statement development. I'd like to turn now to Georgia, and that will be followed by Madagascar. Georgia.
So, on behalf of the government...
Do you have video?
Do you hear me? Yeah.
We hear you. Are we able to see you as well?
On behalf of the government of Georgia, I'd like to express gratitude to the countries organizing this meeting. We are aware and fully support the issue which is related to the marine litter and prevention of plastic waste. So we fully support the ministerial statement and development of the global agreement to prevent marine litter and plastic pollution. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your intervention. I believe Madagascar has lowered their hand, so I'm going to go back to our NGOs and would like to go to HELCOM, followed by Yongo and the Center for International Environmental Law. HELCOM, if you would like to come in.
Dear moderator, distinguished excellencies, HELCOM is the governing body of the Convention on the Protection of the Marine Environment of the Baltic Sea. Contracting parties to the convention are Denmark, Estonia, the European Union, Finland, Germany, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Russia, and Sweden. These countries gathered more than 40 years ago to achieve a common goal, to protect the marine environment of the Baltic Sea from all sources of pollution through intergovernmental cooperation. Time has passed and new pressures threaten to jeopardize the achievement of such a goal, among which marine litter is an issue of concern. HELCOM official starting point on this topic dates back to 2013, when countries committed to significantly reduce marine litter by 2025, compared to 2015, and to prevent harm to the coastal and marine environment as part of the 2013 Ministerial Declaration. Furthermore, HELCOM countries decided to develop a regional action plan by 2015 at the latest, with the aim of achieving such ambitious objectives. Such action plan has been recently updated based on lessons learned from the implementation of the first action plan adopted in 2015 and under the best available information on amounts and composition of litter found in the coastal and marine environments, as well as its sources and pathways to the Baltic Sea. Through its nearly 30 actions, the action plan is to be considered as the main regional tool to achieve the marine litter, ecological, and management objectives of the Baltic Sea Action Plan. Some of these actions, for instance, addressing other organizations or institutions having a specific competence to act, require a coordinated approach. Cooperation with other regional CIS conventions is an essential part of this work, ensuring mutual learning and coordination of actions. Furthermore, the contracting parties commit to a global agreement on plastics and microplastics, which could include national management plans on plastics and microplastics as an element within the agreement. Therefore, ELCON welcomes the draft ministerial statement considered during this ministerial conference as kindly co-convened by Germany, Ecuador, Ghana, and Vietnam. And we thank you all for the opportunity of raising our voice. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. I believe Madagascar would like to intervene now, so that will be followed by UNGO and the Center for International Environmental Law. Madagascar.
Merci beaucoup de m'avoir.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Firstly, Madagascar would like to commend the co-conveners for this initiative, and we'd like to commend the progress made. On behalf of the government, we also support all of the actions that will contribute to developing the draft resolution until its adoption until UNEA 5.2 on marine litter and plastic pollution. We are aware that we really need an international instrument to effectively tackle plastic pollution. This resolution for us will be an important tool to guarantee negotiations on a global legally binding agreement, we hope. We also commend all of the efforts made by the committee, the open-ended group. We actively follow the progress of developing this document. I would also like to recall that Madagascar, through the Ministry of the Environment and Sustainable Development, welcomed the CID this year. We adopted a declaration on the need for a new global agreement on plastic pollution. Our strategy and plan of action on managing plastic pollution is now in the final phase to be adopted by the government. We also support the importance of strong support for developing states in terms of technology transfer and capacity building, and in particular when it comes to financial support for countries that are on the front line of this plastic pollution. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your intervention. And I now go to UNGO, followed by the Center for International Environmental Law.
Thank you, Chair. Their Excellencies, colleagues, all protocols observed. On behalf of the Center for International Environmental Law, which is part of the Break Free from Plastic movement, we would like to suggest some important missing elements of the final draft of the ministerial statement. These include mention of ambitious measures to restrict, ban, and eliminate toxic additives in plastics, which also persist through recycling, and registration of particular polymer types. Further, the final draft neglects clear reference to the legally binding nature on an international convention, as well as the need to include human rights-based approach. Plastic pollution is a main driver of biodiversity loss and climate change, and which exacerbates the triple planetary crisis. We strongly recommend for a recognition of plastic pollution as a common concern of humankind. This globalizing concept embraces international cooperation, which is more than necessary to tackle this crisis, and which encompasses both present as well as future generations. The time to act is now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And that was the Center for International Environmental Law. So I now go back one to Yungo. Please, if you would like to come in.
Am I audible now?
You are.
Thank you very much. And thanks, moderator, for the floor. I am Kathy, speaking on behalf of Yungo, the youth constituency of the UNFCCC, and I'm speaking as its contact point on oceans. And first, we'd like to start by thanking the attention and work of countries on marine litter and plastic pollution. We highly appreciate the statement, and we support many previous interventions made by countries that more support on finance and capacity building towards developing countries, especially LDCs and CIS, are critical. And also, in addition, we'd like to see civil society stakeholder engagement being addressed further, and we appreciate UNEP, Argentina, Singapore, and many more for addressing the importance of our engagement in all levels of the work in the remarks and interventions. And we thank Antigua and Barbuda for mentioning the importance of youth engagement specifically. And further, we urge countries and related UN agencies and bodies to further include constituencies, especially civil society stakeholders like youth, women, and indigenous peoples in all levels of the work. And in addition, we strongly encourage countries to support further joint work on this topic between UNEP, UNFCCC, CBD, and IMO, especially as oceans' connection with the climate and biodiversity conventions were highlighted in various remarks yesterday. And last but not the least, we give our full support to potential interventions of colleagues from the Women's Major Group and UNEP MGCY. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed for your intervention. I believe we can now go back to Cambodia, hopefully with sound as well as picture. Cambodia, are you with us? It seems not, so can I go to Somalia, please? Somalia, are you with us?
Yes, thank you, moderator. We commend the good work of the covenant of Germany, Ecuador, Ghana, and Vietnam. The issue of marine pollution is a major global challenge, and more so for countries like Somalia, which has the longest continental coastline in Africa. The problems of countries like ours is even more than marine litter and plastic, as we are experiencing dumping of suspected radioactive material. The menace of illegal, unreported, and unregulated fisheries is related to the criminal syndicates of association with marine dumping. The government of Somalia has put in place institutional mechanisms and necessary policies and legislation to tackle this challenge and other environmental issues, but it requires more than one country to address these complex problems. Regarding the issue at hand, Somalia is happy with a proposed statement and welcomes the need for a legally binding agreement that takes into consideration national capacities and circumstances. We would like to emphasize that the proposed intergovernmental working group should be open-ended and allow as many countries as possible to participate. The issue of means of implementation to help especially least developing countries is critical for the success for the agreement. I thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you very much indeed for your intervention. I'm going to try once more for Cambodia. We are hoping you will be online and with sound. Cambodia. No, it seems not. So I'm now going to turn to the Women's Major Group, if you would like to intervene. Women's Major Group, followed by Nestle.
Thank you, moderator. Excellencies, distinguished delegates. As Women's Major Group, we are concerned about several issues that have not been highlighted extensively in the draft ministerial statement. Firstly, plastics are toxic across the life cycle, impacting our health and that of children. The next generations cannot avoid pollution from plastics. Babies are born with microplastics and toxics that accumulate in the body and that negatively impact health, often irreversibly. Plasticizers and hormone disruptors found in many plastics can lead to infertility, diabetes, and cancer. Additionally, plastic production, consumption, use, and disposal contribute negatively to the three major crises facing our planet today, those of pollution, biodiversity, and climate. We're also concerned about the impacts of plastic waste and processing of plastic waste on women workers and on human rights. As research has shown, women in the plastic industry have a 5-fold increased risk to develop breast cancer. However, these harms are not inevitable, and the Women's Major Group is encouraged by the progress of these discussions and the ambition expressed by a number of countries. We look forward to the continued cooperation and full and meaningful participation of civil society and stakeholders, especially women and girls in all their diversity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your intervention. Now ask Nestle, followed by Plastic Europe. Nestle.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Jody Rousseau with Nestle. We joined as an observer to speak for our support for the UN treaty moving forward. We believe a comprehensive and binding approach will serve companies as well as citizens globally. We were one of the many companies that signed the manifesto statement of business organized by EMF and the World Wildlife Fund, and we believe that global goals with binding national action plans will give companies the necessary regulatory stability to make investments and plans to change the current production system for food and beverage packaging to a system that will enable us to have true circularity and create thousands of green jobs around the world. Without a regulatory basis, it's extremely difficult for us to do this. We today have over 20 pilots in reuse and refill, as well as hundreds of projects moving to monomaterials, paper, and other forms of packaging to try to improve the sustainability footprint of the food and beverages that we sell. From production to trade to applications to collection, sorting, and recycling, we need a comprehensive agreement that looks at the full life cycle of the use of plastics and allows us to valorize this material for the wonderful properties it does have, protecting food and beverages. We're also a partner of the Ocean Plastics Leadership Network, and we support their initiative to move a global multi-stakeholder dialogue from the international level online to the domestic level with national multi-stakeholder dialogues that will begin to take place this fall around the world. We welcome any governments who are interested in participating after the negotiations open to also join these multi-stakeholder dialogues so that we can have a wide and rich, diverse view that will be shared with governments as the negotiations proceed. We thank you for your efforts thus far, and we stand ready as part of industry to support your discussions on standards, on data, and also the role of companies in the future building an end-to-end circular economy. Thank you.
Nestle, we thank you for your intervention, and I now turn to Plastic Europe.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the co-conveners, Switzerland and UNEP, for organizing this conference and for giving us the opportunity to provide comments on the ministerial statement. We agree with the need for countries to move forward with negotiation of a global instrument to address marine litter and plastics pollution. Plastics are vital to addressing society's largest challenges, including improving medical outcomes, access to fresh and healthy foods, hygiene and sanitation, modern communication, transportation systems, infrastructure, and employment. Plastics are essential to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and meeting national commitments under the Paris Agreement. The statement should recognize the value of plastics to society. Plastic production and consumption is not the cause of the plastic pollution crisis, but a factor to be considered. Focusing on sustainable consumption and production of all materials, accelerating the transition to a circular economy, universal access to waste collection and environmental sound management should be the focus of our efforts. Consideration of alternative materials should be based on a life cycle approach to prevent adverse environmental, economic, and health impacts. And finally, limits to plastic production and consumption without considering the production and consumption patterns of all products and materials will result in increase in waste from other materials, increased greenhouse gases, and other negative environmental impacts. Thank you very much, and we're looking forward to continue the discussion on this important topic. Thank you.
Thank you to Plastic Europe, and we have one opportunity for one final intervention from the Women Environmental Programme. If you would like to come online, please. So a final intervention from the Women Environmental Programme.
Can you hear me?
Yes, and can you put the video on?
Yes. Okay. So thank you, Chair. Thank you, Moderator. My name is Gwebese Tracy from Women Environmental Program. We support the statement already made by the Women's Major Group and the intervention from our other African countries. WEF has published a study on the gender dimensions of chemicals and plastic waste in Nigeria, jointly with the Secretariat of Conventions, which is available on the BRS website. This research details terrible situations of waste, Stockholm and Rotterdam, working among toxic burning plastic waste in our country. In light of this lived experience, and in the context of this conversation, we would like to highlight our concerns regarding the unjust and toxic plastic waste trade to Africa from countries of the global north. We call on the member states present in this conference to strengthen the ministerial statement on the need to respect the requirements of the Basel and Bamako Conventions traded and treated. It is a shame that some global north countries are trying to push African countries to weaken their national laws so as to make it easier for them to export on half plastic waste and even toxic chemicals manufacturing to Africa. We call on members current domestic laws in African countries bilateral agreements. Thank you very much. I heard.
Thank you for your intervention. We missed a little bit of it, but I think we got a very good gist of your message. So thank you very much. We need to draw this section to a close. We've had a huge number of interventions, wisdom, thought, advice, and I would like now to invite Regina Duber from Germany, who is part of the group considering the ministerial statement, to offer a few words of reflection and the process moving forward. Regina, are you with us? Regina Duber?
Hello?
Hello, we hear you.
Okay, could you just repeat? I was for a moment not online.
Okay, we have reached the end of verbal interventions on under 3B on the ministerial statement, and I understand you are just going to offer a couple of reflections and outline the process moving forward before we move on to item 4.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, and thank you very much for all the very valuable contributions we received from yesterday and today also. We have already started last night to incorporate your comments as far as possible. And we will now immediately go on and try to also look into the comments which came from today morning, and so that we can have a final document to be uploaded at around 12 o'clock, so that the high-level meeting would be able to reflect on that. So thank you again very much, and we have to go on for work now, so I'll be short.
Regina and the other co-conveners, we wish you well in your deliberations.
Thank you.
So we take a short breath, but only a short one, because we have one further item before we break for lunch at 12 o'clock. So I now move on to item 4. And item 4 is outlining steps in the lead up to the resumed 5th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly, UNEA 5.2. And I would like to invite the UNEA President and CPR Chair to present updates on specific next steps in preparation for the resumed session of the 5th session of the United Nations Environment Assembly, UNEA 5.2. and the formal process leading up to it. So, Excellencies, the floor is yours, and I first call on the President of UNEA, and Minister of Environment and Climate of Norway, His Excellency Mr. Sveinung Rotevatn.
Dear colleagues, I'm pleased to greet the first ever Ministerial Conference on Marine Litter and Plastic Pollution. Let me start by thanking the governments of Germany, Ecuador, Ghana, and Vietnam for their extraordinary efforts to create a meeting place for us to discuss the prevention of plastic pollution. I also want to thank UNEP for their valuable support in this regard. We were unable to meet in person at the 5th UN Environment Assembly earlier this year. However, I still hope that we will be able to meet at the resumed session for UNEA 5 early next year. We will need some more time to consider the possible mode of engagement. I think we all know what is at stake regarding the growing challenge of marine plastic litter, as well as other threats to nature, our very life support system. In the meantime, I have been encouraged by the level of engagement in the preparations for this ministerial conference. In particular, I want to highlight and commend the dedication of many colleagues that had to stay up very late to participate in the virtual discussions due to time zone logistics. There have been 2 preparatory meetings for this conference. Representatives from all over the world have discussed crucial gaps in global governance of plastics and possible measures to address these gaps in a new global agreement. We have seen significant convergence on many issues, including the need to manage plastics in a life cycle perspective. Most importantly, we have heard a clear call from countries to start negotiations on a new global agreement. It will allow us to establish a coherent and effective framework and create a level playing field for our efforts. Over the last 18 months, we have been confined to virtual meeting rooms, and the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic still loom large. At the same time, we have seen how climate change, pollution, and loss of biodiversity have added significantly to the difficulties of many around the world. The global demand for an end to plastic pollution is growing more pronounced every day. I strongly encourage you to send a powerful message of action from this ministerial conference and work to take decisive steps forward at UNEA 5 next year. Nature cannot wait. Neither can we. Thank you and good luck with the discussion.
We thank you for that. Just to say, in a moment, there will be an opportunity for any observations or questions of clarification regarding the process moving forwards towards UNEA 5.2. But now I would like to ask Luisa Fragoso, CPR Chair, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Portugal to the Republic of Kenya and Permanent Representative to the UN Environment Programme, to take the floor, please.
Good morning. I hope you can see me now and hear. The connection is complete. As I start, I would like to commend the governments of Ecuador, Germany, Ghana for this initiative, and Vietnam. And it is my pleasure to address this important event in my capacity as Chair of the Committee of Permanent Representatives of the UN Environment Programme. As you know, the Committee of Permanent Representatives is responsible for the preparation of future sessions of the Environment Assembly and also importantly to oversee the implementation of UNEP's program of work and of resolutions adopted by the UN Environment Assembly. Throughout this conference, several participants have referred to the resumed session of UNEA 5 or UNEA 5.2 as an important opportunity to consider and agree on global action to address marine litter and plastic pollution, possibly through the adoption of UNEA resolutions. Let me therefore try to shed some further light on the preparatory process under the auspices of the CPR and in the lead up to the resumed session of UNEA 5. In the upcoming 8th meeting of the annual subcommittee meeting of the CPR, scheduled for 25th, 29th October 2021 in Nairobi, we will consider the state of preparations for the resumed session of UNEA 5, including with regards to the submission of draft resolutions. The meeting, which will most likely take place in a hybrid format, will be an opportunity to announce or table draft resolutions for UNEA 5.2. After the meeting of the annual subcommittee meeting, it is foreseen that an in-depth consultation will take place during subsequent CPR subcommittee meetings, which will be scheduled for November, December, and January. Final considerations of and negotiations of the draft resolutions will then take place at the resumed meeting of the 5th open-ended meeting of the Committee of the Permanent Representatives, which will take place in Nairobi in the week preceding UNEA 5.2. This meeting will act as a prep-com to the Environmental Assembly. Finally, the negotiated draft resolutions will be submitted for adoption to the resumed session of UNEA 5, scheduled for 28th February to 2nd of March 2022. In the coming days, I intend to work closely with Norway, which holds the presidency of UNEA 5, to look at further guidance on the process of submitting draft resolutions to UNEA in writing. Let me close by congratulating the organizers of this ministerial conference. The topic of this meeting is a matter of highest priority for us all, and it is my hope that this meeting will be a milestone towards a global agreement on marine litter at the resumed session of UNEA 5. I thank you and wish you good continuation of a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. So we have just a couple of moments if anyone wants to intervene specifically on the process leading to UNEA 5.2. So any particular questions for clarification or observations. Otherwise, we will further move on, but only interventions related to that. So if you do want to intervene on this, either put your name tag vertically, and we will come to you. I see from Malawi in room S1. We come to you in just a moment. Okay, Malawi.
Let me begin by thanking you, Mr. Moderator, for the able manner in which you are handling the meeting. Since we are speaking for the first time, Malawi thanks and commends Germany, Ghana, Ecuador, and Vietnam, the conveners, as well as UNEP, for the excellent manner in which they have organized this ministerial conference. We also thank Switzerland, our hosts, for the warm welcome accorded to us, more so in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. That should be praised as a true spirit of promoting multilateral diplomacy. Mr. Moderator, there is no doubt that the production of plastics has brought with it major environmental challenges. This is why Malawi fully subscribes to the narrative that pollution significantly caused by plastics is one of the major environmental challenges of our times. Collective action, therefore, in a coherent, participatory, and transparent manner is needed to come up with solutions which puts at the center nationally determined contributions set within a regional and global context. Malawi looks forward to the resumed fifth session of the Environmental Assembly in February-March 2022. We believe that during that moment, member states will be able to engage frankly and within enabling conditions. Let me emphasize that Malawi's position remains that the potential negotiations regarding the establishment of an intergovernmental negotiating panel and related matters should not be done online. Engagement on this substantive item requires to be conducted in person with minimum qualifications. While Malawi is supportive of this preparatory process, we remain steadfast in our conviction that UNEP is the only forum with the mandate to find consensus amongst member states in dealing with the issue at hand. In conclusion, and without preempting both the process and the outcome of the issue of the proposed intergovernmental negotiating panel and the possibility of a global instrument, Malawi remains actively available and engaged. I thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Tumi. Thank you, Malawi. And I'd now like to bring in Nepal, who would like to comment.
Okay. Respected Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Government of Nepal and my delegation, I would like to extend our thanks with appreciation to the co-conveners, Government of Ecuador, Germany, Ghana, and Vietnam for organizing the Ministerial Conference and warm hospitality. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the UN Environment Programme for the continued support and cooperation. It is a matter of great pleasure and privilege for me to participate and share a few words at this event. Because I would like to start my briefing. Nepal is a small mountain country having abundant water resources throughout the country in the form of snow covers, rivers, springs, lakes, and groundwater. In Nepal, plastic waste is well known for clogging the rivers and streams in the mountains and hills, resulting in the flash floods. The flow of water from the rivers to the ocean also carries plastic and solid waste, posing a threat to both ecosystem and people in the mountains, plastic nests and shares. Government of Nepal has taken a various initiative in devising the appropriate legal instruments, institutional and financial arrangement to control the pollution. It is my pleasure to the chair of the government of Nepal has announced a complete ban on the production, import, sales, and distribution and use of plastic bags and sheets having thickness less than 40 microns to reduce the environmental pollution from plastic products. Also, use of the cotton, jute, or paper bags instead of plastic bags is made mandatory in all business houses, including shopping malls and departmental stores. I would like to reassure here the government of Nepal is fully committed towards the protection of the environment through the development and effective enforcement of policies, legislation, action plans, and programs in the line with the national commitment in the international forums. Also, we have been giving high priority for achieving sustainable development goals by 2030. In this regard, we urge UN environmental and development partners to focus efforts for the providing resources and building national capacities for least developed and developing member states. Finally, the government of Nepal expressed its firm belief that the meaningful supports and cooperation from all member states, development partners, UN agencies, and international institutions will be continued to Nepal. In the end, I wish success for this event. Thank you very much.
I thank you, and I now give the floor to Sierra Leone.
Mr. Moderator, Your Excellencies, development partners, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I bring you warm greetings from His Excellency the President, retired Brigadier Dr. Julius Maada Bio, and the people of Sierra Leone. As this is the first time I'm talking, let me also join other countries in thanking the conveners of this critical meeting and lend Sierra Leone's support for the ministerial statement. Ladies and gentlemen, interventions are different depending on where you find yourself, whether you live in a developed, developing, or least developed country. Most developing countries, including Sierra Leone, are vulnerable to climate change, and its effects are amplified by plastic waste due to frequent flooding in cities. A critical intervention, therefore, can reduce plastic pollution from provision of potable clean drinking water, which will help cut down significantly on single-use plastics used as sachets for drinking water. Moreover, the provision of sustainable alternatives for single-use plastic carrier bags is also crucial. This will eventually reduce the entry of plastics into the environment and reduce the incidences of flooding. A financial mechanism that will lead to water security in these countries is most welcome. I therefore urge everyone to endorse this ministerial statement. I thank you all.
Thank you very much for your intervention. I want to find just the final comment related to the process relating moving to UNEA 5.2. Could I invite the European Commission to intervene?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and I apologize for the slightly unusual step of taking the floor again, in fact, taking us back to the discussion on 3B, which I think others countries are still commenting on it. We have been using the time well. We've had to look at the revised statement that the co-conveners have put out. I would like to reconfirm our full support for the statement. We're very happy with the way the statement articulates the urgency of the problem, highlights the need to move to an INC, and in a very balanced manner, we believe also highlights various elements that such a future agreement should contain. However, we have one concern I would like to quickly raise. We will do it in writing, but I would like to be transparent about it. It relates to the revised version of paragraph 4D on means of implementation. Once again, I would like to say we are very much in support of referring to the need for means of implementation. We need to be clear that these are necessary, that support is necessary. However, we would not like to, at this stage, have a limitation of these and a specification that infrastructure would be supported. That, I think, is an unusual way of referring to means of implementation, and therefore we would like to be able to have text which refers in general terms to the need to provide support to developing countries for the implementation of the agreement, but not have a specific reference to infrastructure. Thank you very much, and apologies again.
Thank you for your further intervention. So, as we are now nearing lunch, I'm going to move on from item 4, and I would like to invite Walter Schult, Director of Environmental and Sustainable Development Affairs in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ecuador, one of the co-conveners, just to summarize where we're at and what is happening immediately next. So, Walter, there have been a lot of interventions, a lot of discussion, and if you could just update us on the situation, that would be very good. Over to you, Walter Schult.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I indeed agree that we have heard a very, very significant number of good proposals and good inputs to improve the ministerial declaration. We have been working since last night, as was expressed by my fellow co-convener, Regina from Germany, in trying to introduce, to adapt, to incorporate, make our best effort to reflect your inputs into a revised version of that ministerial declaration. We have heard also some very important additional contributions this morning, both from states and other relevant stakeholders, and we're very grateful for that. We are going to be working in the very last minutes to make those final adjustments while we speak and in this very last minutes. But we are, again, just very glad to transmit the message that the inputs that we have received are very important. Most of them are in line of what we have been already incorporating to improve the draft ministerial statement. And some of them, like I said, will be finally incorporated or adjusted to the text to reflect something that, again, is not something that has been negotiated word by word, but really to represent the common views and the objectives that we have shared. And from the different perspectives, this is also very important from both developed and developing countries, from states and other relevant stakeholders, from all the different constituencies that are behind each of the statements and contributions that we have heard. I will not go into the details of what we have been able to incorporate or not, but just to flag that we always have to make the effort to make something that represents, again, not the best or ideal text, but really something that we feel and believe is something that represents the general feeling and message that this ministerial conference wants to deliver to the outside world, who is very much expecting and looking forward for the message and how this will connect with the following steps, including the negotiation of a global agreement. Having said that, I want to inform everyone, those participants here and those that are connected, that it will be around noon, so in a very few minutes, uploading the final revised version of the draft ministerial statement. And of course, being able to circulate it here, but most importantly, to be uploaded in the website for the full transparency, so that during your ministerial dialogue that will resume this afternoon after the lunch break, you of course may consider also to referring. We know that ministerial statements are usually approved and decided with much advance, but of course, if you can also react on comment on the ministerial declaration, the new draft, again, not to change, but to speak to that document, that also will be important, of course, without prejudice to the points that you want to raise from your national statements during the ministerial dialogue. So, having said that, I'd give back the floor to you, Mr. Moderator, and thank once again all the states and other stakeholders for their important contributions to the draft ministerial assignment. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that clarification of the process moving forward. I just have one intervention coming from Cameroon, which I would like to just embrace. So over to Cameroon.
Thank you, Moderator. My delegation is taking the floor for the first time. I just want to commend your chairmanship and the wisdom in which we are conducting our sessions. We just have a quick one, Mr. Moderator. We didn't follow carefully what was the concern of the EU, but what we heard is that they would like certainly to delete the word infrastructure when it comes to the implementation of support expected from developing countries to developed countries in terms of implementation of this agreement. Our long-standing positions as a developing country was that in terms of implementing our obligations under these negotiations or instruments, we certainly call on having some infrastructural changes. And I think this is the long-standing position of developing countries. So we would like to know if there's a conflict between what they understand as implementing this agreement and addressing the issues of infrastructure, which is also tied to the issue of transfer of technology and also knowledge sharing. So we would like to have more details on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I think that conversation can be developed out with this moment, but thank you. We receive well your message and concern. Thank you very much. We're almost at lunchtime, but just before lunch, we would just like to have the opportunity to show the two videos which, due to technical problems, we were not able to show yesterday. And the first one was from the hearing from the major stakeholder groups under the umbrella of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. They were very much talking about their outlook on the journey towards a binding legal agreement. So I would like to start the video again from the position where it stopped yesterday. So let's please, we have that video.
We need to eliminate the plastics from the economy that we don't need. And for the plastics that we do need, we need to ensure that they can be reused, recycled, or composted. Recycled or composted.
Generate the impact that's needed. And an infrastructure treaty can important material.
UN treaty based on circular economy principles, including both upstream and downstream measures to tackle plastic pollution. A treaty is the obvious next step from the successful voluntary agreements already in place. It will raise greater awareness of the issue and the need to act, in turn harmonizing policy efforts, enhancing investment planning, stimulating innovation and coordinating infrastructure development. The environmental impacts of single-use plastics can be significant, especially for ocean life. As a global asset manager, we actively engage with companies to reduce their environmental impact. We believe sustainable companies will be better placed to keep pace with a changing regulatory and consumer landscape and deliver attractive returns to investors over the long term. Through collaboration, we can all make a difference.
Tragically, the plastic pollution crisis is showing no signs of slowing down, but the commitment to tackle it has reached an unprecedented level. We need a UN treaty on plastic pollution that unites governments, companies, consumers around clear targets and binding measures for reduction, collection, recycling, and sustainable alternatives. Consumers around the world in developed and developing economies are signaling their readiness for a step change in behaviors and are calling on their leaders to create the enabling conditions and urgently take action. More than 100 governments have officially endorsed the establishment of the treaty, including many governments who are gathered here today. To all of you goes our deep appreciation and support. This conference provides a unique opportunity for you leaders to pave the way to success at the 5th session of the UN Environment Assembly, when the negotiations of the treaty must begin. We call on all governments to urgently establish an international negotiating committee for a UN treaty on plastic pollution. The momentum is there, the time is now, the time to turn off the tap of plastic pollution once and for all. Thank you.
And we also hear a second video which failed to transmit yesterday from SPREP and Kirsi Latu, Director General of the Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Programme.
Pacific Island countries make a tiny contribution to global plastic pollution, but our region is grossly and disproportionately affected by it. The highest recorded density of floating plastics is in the South Pacific subtropical gyre. As Pacific people, the ocean is the foundation of our cultures, our livelihoods, and identities. Our health and prosperity relies on the health of our ocean, and support for a global treaty in our region is strong and growing. The vast majority of members of the Pacific Regional Environment Program support a global instrument to tackle plastic pollution. As stewards of vast marine territories, we are at the front line of this problem, and we see its effects every day. We understand that we have obligations towards our ocean, which supports and sustains us, and these responsibilities do not stop at national borders. The work of Pacific Island countries and our region as a whole is guided by the Cleaner Pacific 2025 strategy, and from this year, our 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent. Importantly, this 2050 strategy will prioritize ocean and climate change considerations in all regional and national policies and plans. Already, 3/4 of our member states have introduced or committed to legislation to ban single-use plastic bags and other plastic products. Early this year, the Australia, New Zealand, and Pacific Plastics Pact was launched, which will see governments, businesses, and civil society working together to drive down plastic use and increase recycling. Our work is making a difference, but to be truly effective, it needs to sit within a global framework. Strong commitment to tackling plastic pollution in our region is a start, but it will not address this global problem quickly or effectively enough. For that, we need a legally binding global agreement. UNEA 5.2 represents a critical and historical point to make change. We urge all countries to work together at UNEA 5.2 to establish an intergovernmental negotiating committee to start work on a treaty as soon as possible.
Well, perhaps that's a very eloquent and visual way to end our morning of deliberations, as we are involved in discussions of detail and process. It's important maybe that we lift our eyes always to thinking about what that great objective, that common cause that we are engaged in. So thank you to those for that video. We are now at the end of this morning's proceedings. There will be a 1-hour break for lunch. There is, for those here, a cafeteria upstairs. For those online, you can have your local break. I'm aware that we've had over 1,000 people who have connected in at some point into this conference, and at some point over 500 online at the same point, and we really appreciate your presence at this ministerial conference. So we'll break for 1 hour. I understand that the further revised ministerial statement is now loaded up on the website. The co-convening group doing an extraordinary job in drafting and redrafting. So we will see you back here at 2 o'clock promptly for the next item, which will be the high-level dialogue. Sorry, did I say 2 o'clock? We're working you hard. It will be 1 o'clock this afternoon, so you have between 12 and 1. So we will see you then. I adjourn this meeting now. Thank you.